What is something you feel really proud of?
I think I feel very proud of our relationship.
Oh, no, wait, I'm going to cry. Don't say that. I really wasn't expecting you to say that.
You wanted an honest answer.
Oh, my God. I don't know what I thought you were going to say. I really didn't think you were going to say that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Didn't really think I would still be down. Are you sick?
Welcome back to a very special episode of Bisca's Room. My name is Bisca Rae. This is my brother Cole, and of course we have our special guest here with us today, Jonathan Keith Marshall. Look at the camera, John. Don't look away from the camera. Yes, very talented baby. So today is really exciting because this is my 25th episode of Bisca's Room. Woo. It's crazy to think that we've done this for 25 episodes. I remember celebrating when I got to 10 episodes. So it's really amazing to just think that we have continued on this journey and that we are a quarter of the way to 100 videos. I've heard it said before that it takes usually about 100 videos to really get integrated into the YouTube algorithm and to start to see some momentum for our channel. So I think this is just like a really exciting little point to kind of underline and be grateful for and excited about. Today's video is going to be a different kind of interview style video than I've really done before on the channel. Basically, the concept is Cole and I are going to be doing a little bit of a sibling interview. So we are going to be interviewing each other. We don't know the questions. We wrote them both independently. And so I kind of just thought it would be cool to just kind of take turns asking each other questions, kind of helping the audience get to know each other a little bit. You've seen us before together making music, but we are best friends and lifelong siblings. Mm-hmm. So I thought it might be cool to kind of, just use this as an opportunity to help you guys get to know us a little bit more, help you get to know Cole a little bit more, because obviously I've been yapping for like 25 videos. So there's definitely plenty that you know about me, but I thought it would be kind of a fun little idea. And I also feel like it's the perfect opportunity to start or to kind of celebrate 25 episodes. So Cole, do you have anything you want to say before we get into the video?
We'll see how good my questions are. That's all I have to say.
I feel like Cole is being very insecure about his questions. I wrote my questions in like fucking like 5 minutes, and Cole has.
It took like an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I can't be thoughtful about my questions.
I appreciate thoughtfulness. I think that's a fantastic attribute. So I guess I'm gonna start, and then maybe we can like take turns. Okay, cool. So my first question for my brother is, what is your earliest core memory connecting you to music? Or like, what is like a really clear turning point for you? Like when you were young, where you really like realized how special music was to you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When it comes to like earliest memory, I mean, obviously I feel like it has to come back to church.
Absolutely.
Just like choral stuff, and that just youngest memory being like a really young kid in church hearing that music definitely was my earliest experience. But I mean, also piano lessons with Wilma. Yeah, piano lessons with Wilma.
Wilma Ford.
And she taught you violin, and she taught me some piano. She was real country.
Yeah, she was. I don't even remember where she was from, but she was so Southern. She hi, Elizabeth. Are you ready to play some violin today?
Yeah, she was something else. But I would say that's pretty early on music. As far as when I think I started to realize my passion for music, I think it took longer, actually. I think that didn't hit until probably more like high school, to be honest. I mean, I've played cello for 9-ish years and have been taking private lessons all throughout grade school. But I think when I started to actually find passion was, first off, we were top of the charts pop family. We were not listening to
I came to dance,
other
dance,
music.
dance.
Seriously. Yeah. Anyways.
When you were in high school.
So yeah, I mean, Spotify started to come out when I was in like 7th grade and middle school. And so, 21 Pilots, J. Cole, 2 Cellos, stuff like that was like my first initial like music taste shit. And then high school, just kind of like, that's when I started playing bass. That's when I started playing guitar. And when I started to just learn all these other instruments, try and do pit for musicals, like join rock bands, I think that's really what made me find my passion for music, was kind of that in between middle school and high school.
Just like becoming more of a music fan, and then like starting to realize that you could kind of like find your own space doing it as well.
Exactly.
I guess I'm going to ask a follow-up question just because
Sure.
I like your answer and it kind of made me think of this. I feel like when I was a kid, we were pushed so much into like classical music, and even
Yeah.
like you said, like growing up in church, like we were very familiar with that sort of structured music, and then like
Yeah.
the music we were being offered in school was like a very specific kind of music. What do you think like empowered you to like break away from that? Do you feel like it was just like your listening habits, or like
Yeah.
do you think that there was a part of you that always really wanted to do that kind of
Definitely.
music?
Yeah. I think, like I talk about a lot in our day today, my music taste was what you guys were buying off of iTunes.
Right.
Because I was not purchasing any music on my own.
Right.
And genuinely, I mean, like, the music that I liked the most was the shit that I wasn't getting to hear on the day-to-day. Like, Love Lockdown and Heartless off of 808s and Heartbreaks was like, I love that shit. I didn't even know what that shit was.
Yeah.
And we didn't listen to the Beatles, but we had Eleanor Rigby. And
Because I was playing that in orchestra.
Exactly. So we had Eleanor Rigby, and I loved Eleanor Rigby. And there was like all this other like random mainstream music that I would listen to, like
But that's
Imagine
the thing.
Dragons. But
That's the thing that's interesting about, I think, the
like
way that we were
Jay-Z
purchasing
and Eminem,
is
it was like you would just get those hits.
we were grabbing
Yeah.
random music.
Blueprint 3. We had what's that?
New York.
New York.
Yeah. There were outliers.
Random Eminem. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, even like we purchased like We Didn't Start the Fire, and we purchased there were random, like but we were going off of nothing because we were raised by people who really didn't have a lot of music taste. Like I was raised listening to like musical theater scores with my dad, and like the occasional CD maybe that he would have had that was all kind of like one very specific genre, but for the most part it was a lot of public radio, it was a lot of talk radio, or just nothing. So I think it's like, it is kind of interesting. I think when you talk to a lot of artists and musicians, they will credit like their parents or like whoever was like raising them as like kind of offering them sort of early sounds of that they were kind of into, whereas like for us, we were just kind of stumbling across music for the most part.
Well, and what I'll say is, having taken private cello lessons for as long as I did, it gave me a lot of just like technical ability and musical theory ability, and just like more confidence in that. So that isn't like, I have to give credit to that, because that did make me a more successful, and like it made me capable to be able to make music that I wanted to make.
Totally.
But yeah, classical just puts you in such a specific box.
There's so many rules, and there's such a specific style, and I think you appreciate it. Once you've been a classical musician, you'll always have like a love and appreciation for classical music, especially if you've had the opportunity to play with a full orchestra, in my case. But yeah, it is crazy how much else there is once you really start to get into it.
All right, well, should I ask you?
Yeah, go for it.
My first question?
Please.
Let's see. Based on having lived in Milwaukee for 8 years and having started your music career there almost 6 years ago now, how and in what way did Milwaukee impact you as a person or as an artist or as both?
That's a good question. In all the ways, not unsimilarly from what we were just talking about with the answer to your question. Like, my knowledge of music was so limited for the most part, and like Spotify also was a huge, which is like so interesting now as an artist, like trying to get Spotify to mess with you. Be like, please Spotify, please put me on one of your playlists, please. I just want to have a shot at some success. But it's crazy to like think about like our listening habits both literally started because Spotify came on the scene and just like ultimately offered like such a huge
endless free streaming music is like that changed the music industry forever, obviously. I mean, it wasn't about CD sales or record sales or shit like that, because now you can listen to everything at the drop of a hat.
Well, and it just lends itself to discovery, like it still does. I mean, and that's why
definitely. I'm finding new music on Spotify all the time,
and that's why artists, I think, do focus on Spotify and do try to really focus and push their music on Spotify, because the algorithm and the core of the platform, as much as it does bolster mainstream artists, is still, in my opinion, very much rooted in that feeling of kind of like trying to keep your finger on the pulse. And you see in the music industry more and more A&Ring is being phased out, and you're seeing those positions start to be eliminated, in my opinion, partially because the algorithm is A&Ring now. You can decide if you think that's good or bad, and I don't think the algorithm necessarily has the same taste level as a live human being who can make those decisions, but I do think there's a really interesting conversation there. That's not answering your question at all.
Yeah, not even kind of.
I would say for me, Milwaukee is the place where I got lucky enough to stumble into this, because I really do think it is about luck, and it is about timing and like divine timing, maybe like so much
being at the right place at the right time.
Exactly, like so many random things need to happen. I was just talking with my friend recently about this, like telling him a little bit of like my origin story and like how I went into my first booth and cut my first demo, and how I like had these initial experiences that have ultimately led me to where I am now. It was this idea of just like, I happen to be partying with this person in these spaces with these other artists who were making at the time, while also coming up, getting into music and becoming a huge fan of music in 2016, 2017, 2018. I mean, that's when I moved to Milwaukee, and that's when I think I started meeting more people, and I was living in a more diverse setting where I was being put on to new and different kinds of music. I've definitely talked about this in past interviews, where for me, I was barely scratching the surface with rap and hip hop music. And then I moved to a city that was all about rap and hip hop. And I think that's really interesting too. Like, moving out of Milwaukee, I feel like you talk to people and sometimes they get shocked to discover that Milwaukee is
a place.
Well, that definitely that.
So many people just like, Milwaukee
sounds fake. Sounds definitely fake.
Live there.
Literally, exactly. The idea that there is like this really strong urban, which I know a lot of people fucking hate the word urban, but like truly an urban presence in rural Wisconsin, because it's not just one, and like there is a city in Wisconsin. Seriously. Guys, like, just so you know,
there is a city.
It's a large population. It's a diverse population.
Bigger than Orlando.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people like don't totally realize that or always put that together. And so being all of the sudden moving from a town of 50,000 to moving to a city with a population of 500,000, I just was like, had the opportunity to encounter so much more.
Definitely.
And also being in college and hanging around other people that were kind of into music and were aspiring artists and following other artists at the time. Like, it was very inspiring, and it was, I did have this sort of like blind, hopeful belief that if I started making music, I could make a career out of music just off the fact that I felt really called to do it, and I felt like I was watching other people doing it. I just forever going to concerts, whether that be like larger artists, like going to see Amine on his Good For You tour, or going to see Tyler, going to see JID and Saba on tour.
Yeah.
I got to see a lot of really great shows at the rave, and the rave is more of even like a more intimate setting. It's not that large of a venue. The ballroom is also a relatively more intimate setting too, but especially the rave, I feel like when you're really that close to the stage and all those people are down in that room together, those experiences were just so visceral, and it felt so genuine. Like,
seriously,
I can do this. Like, I see these people, I see what they're doing, I see the force behind them and what they've created, and I feel like I can and should be able to do that for myself. And I think like being in the right place at the right time in Milwaukee, even though my big opportunity didn't come from being in Milwaukee, because there's not really a lot of established industry there. There's not really a lot of like genuine opportunities, despite me like having a lot of moments throughout the past 6 years of being an active artist in Milwaukee and thinking to myself like, oh, this is it. This is going to be the turning point. Like, this is what's going to put me on. This is where I'm finally going to get noticed, and something's going to finally change. You know, that moment never came. But the fact that I went there and that it started the ball rolling on all of this. I've been in that many studios. I've recorded as many tracks as I've put out. I've recorded as many tracks as I haven't put out. And like, that I've gained all of that experience. Milwaukee really did give that to me. And despite not being the place that's like given me my break, I still am so grateful for the experience that it's offered me, because it really has offered me such an invaluable perspective. And I think sometimes it's really hard in the moment. You're thinking about struggle, and you're thinking about like how frustrated you are that the opportunity didn't work out, or you're thinking about how badly you want something, or you're thinking about how someone screwed you over and you feel like you were shortchanged for what you should have had. But when you finally get some space away from all of that, you can kind of look back and be like, wow, like I learned so much along all of those ways, and like all of those experiences have led me to the point where I'm at now, where I have all of the knowledge and experience and culture and all of the things that come together when you're living in a city and being an artist and being immersed in the scene, whether or not you feel like the scene is for you or against you, or exactly.
Cool.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
Long-winded. Okay. Despite being the wee age of 21 and also now being a relatively poor person, in our childhood, we were fortunate to do a lot of traveling, both throughout the United States and internationally. So my question for you is, what is the most favorite place that you have traveled, and do you want to go back, or like, do you aspire to live there, or do you aspire to go other places rather than to like go back to the places you've already been?
That's very interesting. That's a good question, because I think about the amount of national travel we've done just within the States, and then I've had the opportunity to travel across the world and go to different countries. I feel like, I mean, if we're talking just about the States, we've been to so many places. And I think currently living in Florida and being in a different state, I've only ever lived in Wisconsin. So, I mean, the perspective that it's just giving me to be in a different part of the world is really interesting. I feel like one that we talk about a lot is, not that I would want to live there, but Montana is beautiful. It's gorgeous. We went there during the summer one year and went to the Glacier National Park, and just so scenic and beautiful. As far as international, I really like China. I think the way that their society is laid out and the culture that they have there really intrigues me, and I think it would be really cool to live in China. I don't really know.
Can you talk a little bit more about like your experience of like how you ended up? When you say China, China is so vast, and the average person hasn't been to China, and I think there's a lot of like preconceived notions about China. Can you talk a little bit more about like specifically the different parts of China that you were kind of able to visit, and like how that's informed your feelings about it?
I mean, I went on this China trip because I took Chinese in high school, and so I was able to go on an exchange trip, or it wasn't exchange, it was just a trip, and so we landed in Shanghai, which is very metropolis. It has a ton of buildings. We didn't really spend any time there, but just seeing those sites was really cool. And then spending time in Nanjing, which is my Laoshi, my teacher's hometown, was just like a really cool, eye-opening experience. Being able to go to the Confucius Temple markets, which are really just like out of ancient Chinese like books. It's just like crazy, just like really tight. The architecture is beautiful. It's bustling. There's endless amounts of street vendors with endless amounts of things to sell. Different like shopping malls that are like indoor, outdoor, stories high, vegetation everywhere. Just the street life. Being able to go to like ancient villages and see ancient houses. It just was really, really impactful for me. And yeah, I mean, the endless gardens and temples they have there, I feel like brings me a lot of peace.
There's a lot of really interesting juxtaposition as an American traveling to somewhere so ancient, just because we are like the youngest, most babyest of societies. And I think that's really reflected in a lot of our infrastructure and the way we I don't know, just the way like our buildings are and what our oldest buildings are comparatively to going to literally an ancient civilization. I think
existed for thousands of years.
I think that's like really interesting. And I think sometimes people lose context of that because of like certain narratives that are like being pushed towards us to believe one thing or another.
Definitely. Well,
under the political
we really
climate.
Exactly. It's all political. We're talking about the governments. We're not talking about the people, the land, the culture. We're not talking about that. It's all from a political stance, which muddies a lot of it and just makes it nasty, aggravated.
Which is interesting too, though, because like when you think about the United States, like regardless of who's in power, the government is never even kind of coming close to being a genuine reflection of what the American people are, or who the American people are, or even what's important to the American people. And so it's like interesting.
That's how almost all countries are represented, though.
Exactly.
By the people who are in power of those places.
I totally agree. But that's the thing. I mean, bringing the conversation back to the music a little bit, too. Like, I was just looking at my stats. Honey has been performing really well recently. Keep streaming, Honey. Thank you.
Stream Honey.
And we have been able to reach 108 different countries, and I was sitting on the couch just like listing off all the different countries that there's listeners that have checked out the songs. Music is so universal, and music really can bring people together. And when you talk about like world tour, when you talk about people traveling to other places or having international fan base, like that is such a beautiful example of just like palpable, genuine connectivity through music and self-expression and artistry and all of those things. Like, you're making people feel something even if they don't necessarily know the words or the language or whatever it may be. So I think, I don't know. Part of the reason why I wanted to ask you about your travels is just because I feel like it really does allow you to have such like a interesting and valuable perspective.
Greater worldview for sure.
Exactly. And I think like both you and I aspire to one day hopefully be sharing our music in a capacity of traveling and performing shows in like a larger stage, whether that be nationally or hopefully internationally one day. I think there's just so much and so many people that need to be considered. And
we're coming for you, South America.
Yeah,
Brazil.
seriously.
Better watch out, Brazil.
Argentina.
Chile.
I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing
Definitely
some of that. I know we got a little off track. Is there anything else you want to say to that point?
I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I think we talked about what I think is important when it comes to the travel that I've done. Just getting comfy over here.
Yeah, they probably can't even see him when he lays down like that.
All right. Well, in that case, I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Which is a little bit similar to the first question you asked me, but it's different because people get into music for different reasons and different aspirations. But the question is, what do you think was the initial reason or thing that made you want to make your own music? Because I feel like a lot of people get into music and it's covers. They want to learn covers, and that's what satisfies them, is being able to learn hits that they love. But what do you think was the turning point where you felt like, I want to create my own thing?
Yeah, I mean, I started writing music when I was 14, and it was offered to me by my dad. He was like, he was running this 4-H program, and we were tasked with like creating something, just like create anything. And at that point I had my ukulele. I used to like take my ukulele to middle school and just like wander around the halls with my ukulele, which I'm sure was really fucking annoying. Probably literally able to play like 3 chords on my ukulele. I'd be like, I'm yours. Like, girl, get it together. I remember actually, this is actually really good lore. I remember I knew the chords to Lana Del Rey's video games.
Funny.
On ukulele. So I was always strumming the Lana Del Rey, sitting in my backyard, like in middle school doing that. But when we were tasked with this project, that's when I was really like, okay, I'm going to sit down and try to write a song for the first time. And yeah, I don't know. I just liked it. I just enjoyed it. I remember it took me until like part of the way, literally the start of my senior year of high school, to even have any notion that I could seriously try to do some sort of creative career or go to college for creative anything. And I'm not even saying I think you should go to college for a Bachelor of Fine Arts or go into college for art per se, but it was just, there was always so much pressure on me to like be this impressive person from my parents. I always felt I needed to like turn into something extraordinary, but not necessarily something authentically to who I was and what I cared about. And so again, I had the jazz trio in high school, and we did that, and like I was performing in musical theater shows and with show choir and in the fucking symphony orchestra and in the extra holiday strings. Like I was doing music all the time, but it really wasn't until I got to college, like I was talking about, and all of a sudden I was around all of these random people who were brought up in a community where you can just decide to be a rapper if you want to. And obviously like kids in Milwaukee are becoming rappers to try to escape like a worse outcome. I understand the juxtaposition that creates often that opportunity, but the fact that like somehow I still ended up in those spaces and seeing those people and individuals just going after what they wanted and becoming whoever they wanted, that really was a turning point for me, where I, along with seeing sort of like the do-it-yourself independent artists starting to become more and more popular in the internet and in my own listening habits, I think that's really where the turning point was for me, where I was like, oh, I can do this. I need to do this. I'm being called seriously to do this. I've said this all along. There's no reason for me to be doing what I'm doing. There's not one connection or genuine, like, any individual that it makes sense for me to be having produced the kind of music that I produced for as long as I've done it, with the amount of success that I've done it, even though it's been minor success. Like I've still always had support and encouragement and resources coming out of the woodwork for me since I really started this whole journey. And again, I feel like for me, it's because I'm meant to be doing this. And that's why I continue. And that's why there's still so much more of this journey that needs to unfold for what I'm trying to accomplish to come to fruition, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Okay, my turn. So you as a person, whether it be because of the way we grew up, whether that be like you being the youngest sibling, younger than me by 5 years, younger than our older sister by 8 years, whether it be your personality type, whatever.
Sure.
I feel like can be kind of a reserved or more like quiet person until you come out of your shell and get to know people better. What do you think is a common misconception that people have about you, that either when they get to know you better, they change their opinion, or just like something you kind of wish people knew about you sooner?
Sure.
Offer it.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a tough question. I feel like there's a different combination of things. Part of it is like, I don't know, the word shy is always used when people don't want to talk a lot. And that's not wrong, I guess. That is an accurate description. But I feel like part of the reason why I don't talk usually is I don't see a need to. And I think people like to talk to fill awkward silences or to fill the words that are being that are going through their head, the thoughts that are going through their head. And I feel like I only talk when I feel like there's truly something that needs to be said. I feel like that's like some deep bullshit, but I don't know.
I don't think that's bullshit.
That's
though.
just how I collect myself and carry myself, and I think I get an expectation put on myself because I'm tall. I don't know. I stand confidently, whatever it is. I think people think I should be more outgoing than I usually am, and I think that throws people off sometimes when
for people initially.
Exactly, because I think I exude some confidence, but I don't talk like that. So it's like it definitely can throw people off sometimes, but I don't know. I feel like when I meet someone new, I'm much more of a listener. I'm trying to figure out who you are and what your ideals are, if I can trust you, if I can open up to you. Information, words, some of the most powerful thing in this world. And if you give it away easily, people will exploit you. And I know that's like a very defensive way to live, but it's the way I protect my peace and my happiness, and shit, it works for me.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I think peace and happiness are two of the most precious things that we have.
Yeah. And
so it's okay to prioritize keeping those things safe if you
I also just like quietness. I don't know. I like sitting in quiet. I like it.
I think a lot of people can feel uncomfortable with that because of how overstimulating our current society is and our access to constant stimulation through social media and our phones and a constant connectivity to people that we know. We were talking about this recently, just having a really dry phone.
I don't talk to nobody.
Just not actually communicating with anyone really outside of your actual day to day, and how that's a lot more of a reflection of a experience that people used to have where
you're just very more present in your real day to day
because you're not constantly thinking about or talking to or communicating with someone who isn't with you. And I think it can be difficult because it can force people to acknowledge their own loneliness, but I think more people need to be facing that and finding more comfort in being alone. And a big part of that is accepting yourself as you are and enjoying being around yourself.
I'll also say this: words can make you look like an ass. They can come out wrong. They can sound different in your head, and then you say it. You don't think it through, and then it's not that you regret it, but now there's some implication or some shit that wasn't there before. And so I usually just try and speak more thoughtfully, and I'm human and it doesn't always work, and I usually sound like a head ass, but I don't know.
No, words are powerful though.
Yeah.
Again, especially too, like everyone is out here yapping 24/7, and me included, a certified yapper, Bisca Rae. But it is just like when you are more mindful about your words, also when you speak, people listen more, it seems.
Yeah. That was a good question. That was a tough question.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
I pulled that out of my brain.
Oh, all right. Well, my third question for you is, having lived in Florida now for about 5 months, what do you miss about Wisconsin, and what can you now appreciate about Florida, having been here for a little bit?
No bullshit. I miss the food.
Wisconsin's food?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. Like, there's so many places in Milwaukee that I wish I could get food from.
Yeah, I feel that heavy. I feel that so heavy.
And that's on being antisocial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, I'm like, well, I miss this restaurant, and I miss this coffee shop,
Yeah.
and I miss this sandwich in particular. Yeah, it's funny. That, and I do miss Lake Michigan. I really missed being able to swim in Lake Michigan this summer. People think
Me
that we're
too.
crazy for swimming in Lake Michigan because it gets
No, it's
so
the
cold,
best.
but something about being in the cold ass water just makes you feel alive, and
Just
like
gives your nervous system a reset.
the
It's
lake is just beautiful, and you
Yeah.
can just like be out in the waves, and like something about that. There's like a particular spot that we started to really frequent often during that year we spent in Milwaukee during
Yeah.
the summer especially, and like whenever I was feeling really low, I would always be like, okay, we gotta go back, like we gotta go swimming.
Yeah, definitely.
Even when it really wasn't even hot enough to be in the water.
Those were some of the good days, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like those
amongst
that cloudy
times-
day. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it was still a great time. It was beautiful. It was exactly what I needed. I got out of the water. I felt calmer. My breath was better.
Yep. And there's just not like fresh water like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to come by.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's so beautiful about the Great Lakes. You don't even think about it
Seriously.
when you live. I've grown up next to Lake Michigan my entire life.
Whole life,
Literally.
yeah.
So being away from the lake, I really miss that as well.
Yeah, I feel that.
Especially because I'm the type of person to just take a ride by the lake. Like just
That's the Sheboygan one,
literally
bruh.
just drive
That's the
by the
Sheboygan
lake.
classic.
As far as like Florida though,
Yeah.
I find myself settling into my reality down here more and more all the time. When
Yeah,
I first got
yeah.
here, I felt like a fish out of water. Like I just felt nervous and anxious and uncomfortable because I had just moved across the country and I wasn't familiar with my surroundings and I didn't
Yeah.
know anyone, and I felt quite homesick despite maybe there not being a ton for me back home either.
Sure. Yeah.
I think what I've come to appreciate the most about being down here, and what's really beautiful about this, is like what I'm about to say is very aligned with our intention and why we wanted to move down here in the first place, is just the amount of time and space that I've had down here to genuinely change the rhythm in which I live my life.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm genuinely taking my life more so a day at a time, more than I ever have.
Yeah.
It's not about running the race. It's not about like the rat race of like, get through the week so you can get to the weekends, you can get back into the next week, and money is a constant stress and you're always trying to figure out how you can get ahead and pick up the extra shift here or there or whatever it may be. I feel like I've been still struggling, still having hard times,
Yeah.
still worrying about money, still having all of those things,
Of
because that's
course.
life.
That's
and
just life,
adulthood.
yeah.
But being able to prioritize how I feel, being able to prioritize moving.
John. Stop.
So naughty.
Just like moving the box.
Being able to prioritize like moving my body and like taking care of my spirit and unpacking things that I've been holding on to and trying to genuinely work on like bettering myself and understanding myself better and getting to know myself better without all of the extra implications there. And I think that's
Sure.
a big part of it too. And then I'll wrap up on this question, but I think like there is something really valid about moving away from everyone you know,
Yeah.
because it allows you to decide who you are.
It's a restart. I mean, it's a fresh start.
And it
really
is.
is.
And that's not to say that you're like running from your problems or running from your past. More so just to say that like it's okay to create a version of yourself based on nothing besides who you want to be.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like because I was able to do that in this experience, I'm living more authentically for who I want to be and what I want my life to be every day. And that feels really good and feels really genuine. And I just hope that I can continue to do that no matter where I'm heading next. But I also feel really fortunate to feel like I can stay in this zone and in this process as long as I need to until there's like a really clear direction as to like how I can honor myself and honor my path in life as best as I can in a way that like genuinely I just don't think would have ever been possible staying in Wisconsin and Milwaukee.
Definitely. I feel that. I feel the exact same way. I mean, a lot of what you said I think applies to how I feel about the exact same situation.
Yeah.
So
really fortunate, really blessed. What is something you feel really proud of?
I think I feel very proud of our relationship.
Oh, no, wait, I'm going to cry. Don't say that.
I don't know. I
wasn't expecting you to say that.
I don't know. I feel like sibling relationships, I don't know. I don't like speaking on other people's experience just because I don't know other people's experience. But I feel like it's hard to find relationships where you feel like you can really rely on somebody and lean on someone and be fully yourself and like truthful with someone. And we have our sibling bumps every once in a while because we're siblings. But
you should see us on stage.
But I mean, like, I don't know. We work together and that's really good, and we live together and that's amazing, and we create together and that's a beautiful thing. And I just think I'm very thankful to have that in my life, and I think it drastically makes my life a lot better.
I really wasn't expecting you to say that.
You wanted an honest answer.
Oh my God. I don't know what I thought you were going to say. I really didn't think you were going to say that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, man. Relationships have always been really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've just always felt like I really never am succeeding the way I want to in my relationships. I've always felt like an outcast. Like I've always felt like truly like I'm just never getting it right or like finding my people. And I'm genuinely so grateful for our relationship and like have grown so much from our relationship. And I literally can't believe I'm crying.
It's okay. You're okay. It's okay.
But yeah, I'm so grateful for you too, and I love you so much, and like
I love
I'm
you
so
too.
proud of us too, and like we've done so much, and there's so
Seriously.
much that we still are gonna accomplish together, and like I genuinely can't wait to see
Me too.
what happens, because I just feel like there's so much goodness coming. Oh my God, you guys. I was really not expecting
You
that.
asked the question, okay? That's what you get.
Okay. Oh my God.
All right.
I'm like stinging in my eye. Go ahead, please.
Okay, well, I feel like this question was a little half-baked. It was the fourth question. And I was like, I already wrote 3 questions, and I had been thinking really hard about those questions.
They've been really good questions.
So
my
I
God.
think it might not be as good of a question because it's still kind of early and we haven't been here for a super long time. But my question is, how do you think Florida affects your sound?
Ooh, well, what I will say is it's been affecting my sound since when we first started writing and we came down here and started the Dundee tapes, which happened over 2 years ago at this point. Sorry, I'm just still emotionally gathering myself.
Take your time.
What I was going to say, though, is there's something so tender about this environment, and it's part of the reason why we really wanted to come back here.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the humidity. I don't know if it's
I mean, part of it
the
just has
swamp.
to be.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we've been coming here our whole lives
Yeah, I mean-
has to do with something with that. I mean, like, even though the time that we spent here as children maybe wasn't our favorite while we were here,
I used to refer to Dundee as hell. I used to tell people I was going to hell for Christmas break because I would be
I mean,
so
there were
upset.
too many of us in a small house.
Well,
too
and
many cooks, man.
Let's be real. We were going on family vacations, and
Yeah.
I've never been very close with my parents. And
Well,
the
and
energy
Dundee
they
is
were
absolute.
providing.
There is nothing in Dundee.
Well, exactly.
There is nothing in Dundee.
So there was not even like a
Yeah.
place for us to like go off and
No.
like entertain ourselves. It was pretty much like you can sit on the porch, or you can sit in this bedroom,
Or you can run around the lake.
Run around the lake. Go take a lap around the lake. Come back and see me. See how
Yeah.
you feel. Like that's
Yeah.
Again,
Or you could watch Polar Express.
True.
That was the fourth option.
run back Polar Express.
Yeah.
It will be there for you.
But I feel like that's just ingrained in us. It's just a location that we've been coming to, and it was the place where we last really saw Grandma Jane in like a healthy state. And I remember that last time she was so happy we were here, and we were pulling out of that driveway right there, and she was standing in the driveway and she was crying. And
Cool.
I think it just is a really meaningful place in our lives, whether we want to admit it or not. It's just had a lot of impact.
And it's crazy because, like, again, like, we've just never been that close with our family.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, I really was not anticipating crying multiple times in this interview. But our grandmother did have terminal illness.
Yeah.
And ultimately did pass away very abruptly, and ultimately also because of the structure of our lives, like especially for me, because I went to college, like the last years of her life I just didn't see her because I didn't have access or resources to be connected with her really in any way. I guess I could have been calling her, but that just really wasn't the dynamic.
That's not the relationship we had with her. Yeah.
And so like there is just a tenderness about the history of this place and the history of our family and our dynamic and little moments of our childhood and our past previous selves, like our child selves that are just live on here.
Yeah.
And so I think like being here and writing the music here does genuinely tap into those parts of ourselves that are left behind, like the essence of ourselves that are left behind, I think is really real.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Okay. This is the last question.
For me.
Well, actually, I wrote two.
Okay.
So, for starters, out of all the instruments you play, which is your favorite?
Bass guitar.
Yeah.
I know that. I don't know. I don't even practice as much as I should. I've played cello forever. I love cello. I love the sound. I love what you can do with it. I think all of the private lessons I've taken has made me resent it a little bit. I wish I could have my cello down here. But when I started learning bass, that was the first instrument I got to learn for me.
Yeah. That's really special.
And cello was for my parents, and piano was for my parents. And when they got me a bass for Christmas, I got to sit down and learn songs I wanted to learn and get better at something that I wanted to get better at. And it felt very close to cello, and I love low frequency instruments. I always have. When I was in 4th grade choosing which instrument I would play in the gym, my two options were cello or bassoon, which is random as fuck, but it was just that low frequency instrument just fucking Made my brain feel
Brr.
good. Brr. Just a little autistic
That's on the
brain.
autism.
Woo! But yeah, I just like that. It's an instrument that I pretty much fully taught myself how to play, and I spent countless hours doing that, and it made it easier to learn how to write guitar lines and learn how to play guitar. And I love guitar. I love the music that I make on guitar. But when I pick up a bass, it just feels like home. And like,
I love that.
yeah, I just feel like every time I pick it up, I remember why I love playing bass.
I love that. So that
Yes.
kind of changes a little bit of what I was going to ask you as my other question, but I think I'll just ask you this.
Sure.
Having said that bass is your favorite, do you have particular bassists who are really inspiring to you, or like who maybe it could be like who made you want to be a bassist in the first place, or maybe even just like under present day, any artists that
Definitely
really make you feel excited to continue playing bass lines on music, or specific songs that have really stood out to you or make you want to emulate that or achieve that in the work that you're doing now?
Definitely. I think when I first started playing bass, my whole music taste was surrounded by like classic rock.
Yeah.
60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So like Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones. I think it's John Paul Jones.
I don't know.
John Paul
bassists
George.
like
It might be John Paul George. He was a super big inspiration for me at the beginning because I was listening to so much Led Zeppelin, and he was not just like he was not just the AC/DC, I'm gonna play the root note. He was like creating melodic, like intricate bass lines, and that was something that I really liked. As I started to learn more about bass and get more interested into it, Victor Wooten, extremely big inspiration for me. I mean, he's created techniques and music that no one else could make, and has pushed music so much further with that. He's definitely inspired like Thundercat and Mono Neon, which are more modern day bassists who I absolutely love, and those are the musicians that are current day that make me want to keep going and make me want to keep getting better. Jaco Pastorius, I couldn't talk about my inspirations without talking about him. The way he learned how to make harmonics happen. I delved into so much of his history and his lore and how he came to be, and that resonated with me super strongly. I mean, Portrait of Tracy is a song that I always have in my repertoire, anything that I can just pull out at any moment, and I love that song so much, and I try and incorporate harmonics into my music now that I'm making because I've known about Jaco Pastorius. So yeah.
Nice.
That's my answer.
I love that. I think that's an awesome answer. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for asking it. All right. My last and final question is, having released 2 full-length EPs, Internet Girl #1 and Sad Girl Season, and getting ready to release your new EP, Girl Project, how has that informed your opinion about releasing music? And how does it change your opinion on other artists releasing music or projects?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question because of the overall climate right now. We live in an algorithmic world where everyone is telling you there's no value in releasing a body of work. The only thing that you should be doing is single. Release a single, push that single as hard as you can, drop a single every week, drop a single every month. Like, I've seen it all. And there's validity in those approaches, and I think you can definitely see tangible examples of artists who have had that approach and who have found success because of their choice to release music in that way. And when you think about a project, you could be thinking about it as a project, a body of 8 tracks, 7 tracks, 5 tracks, whatever your project. For me, that's what my projects are looking like. They're short EPs They've got short run times. I've never put out a body of work longer than like 15 minutes. And
That's how we like it.
Yeah. And I think, again, I could have done it that way. I could have released 8 tracks, 1 track every month for 8 months of the year, and maybe that would have brought me to success. However, because of the way that I learned about music, which is interesting because we did talk about this earlier, I feel like this ended up being such a good interview. I don't want to toot our own horn, but I feel like this ended up being like really insightful. I had a feeling that this was going to turn out well, but now that we're at the end of it, I do feel like it went pretty well.
Yeah.
But I feel like because of the way that I came up watching artists and falling in love with artists and falling in love not necessarily with artist singles, although there are definitely artists who I love because of a singular song. Yeah. But being able to really connect with an artist through a body of work, through an EP, through an album. One that comes to mind, who I've talked about on the channel previously, Deb Never, in 2019 or I think it was 2019. She released her EP. I think it's House on Wheels. I just listened to that cover to cover so many times. Clairo and her first body of work when I was 20 in 2018, going through a really hard time. I was listening to that project cover to cover and just finding like real connection and identity in what she was putting out. And those are just a couple of women that I can speak to at specific points in my life where the project came out and it was that palpable. Being able to connect with a body of work that a song doesn't need to be or sound like a single, and a song can be 1 minute long, and a song can be experimental in its structure or in its runtime or in its production, or there's a myriad of things that can go into a project that maybe I think people feel like just wouldn't be appropriate with the intention of a single.
I totally agree.
And again, that's not to say that anything can't be a single, because anything absolutely can be a single. But I do think it changes the relationship with the music when you present them as a body collection.
Of work.
And so like,
well, because it can tell a story, whether it's a storytelling album or not, it can tell a story no matter what.
I totally agree. And I think for the longest time there was this pressure initially when I started making music that was kind of like, do I need to be making a body of work that tells a story, or like do I need to make a body of work that is meant to be listened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a story, or like in order for you to understand it, or did I need to make every track that ends up in the project with the intention that it goes in
to the next song,
or just like into the body of work as a whole. But what's really interesting and beautiful is as you continue to be an artist and as you continue to create, projects come together organically. And
just because of where you're at with your life and what your sound is at that time. What you're making at that period is what that project is.
Precisely. The people you're collaborating with, the feelings you have, the sounds you're interested in. And it's very interesting as you look project to project, or as the years pass, and how those things really do evolve and can really change based on those resources and situations as well, in additionally to your own music taste and your own skill level and all of these things. And like even too, like with Sad Girl Season, you get 8 or 9 tracks. I forget what the end.
I think it's 8.
You get 8 tracks of 36 that I made at that time. And again, I've talked about that before, but what's so interesting about those 9 is like, I just was listening to the full amount of music that I had at that time enough until eventually those just float to the top, and it's like, this is what it's supposed to be. This is where I'm at. This is what I want to share, and this is the right picture of those songs and those moments and those feelings of everything that I have. Like, this is what makes sense. And I think that's where you see a lot on the cutting floor throughout a lot of the work that I've done. I mean, like, there's so many songs that haven't been released. But like, that's part of the beauty of progression. And that's why I also am going to put out another EP, despite the fact that every music exec, if they were to look at what I'm doing right now, they would probably tell me
they all have to be singles.
Never release another body of work ever again, and only release singles and do this or do that, whatever. But like for me, it's like proof of life and collections of moments in time. And that is so valuable and so special to me. And so beyond my aspirations of being a successful musician, beyond my aspirations of financially supporting myself, hopefully with this pursuit one day, and being able to follow larger expanded versions of this dream that I'm kind of going after, the authentic experience of being an artist and sharing my work and being unapologetic about the ways and the format and the packaging in which I want to share my work is invaluable to me. And is that life vein that comes along with being an artist that makes me feel like I could never give this up, because it's so integral to who I am as a person and the things that make me feel the most authentically like myself.
Yeah, that's so valid. I mean, when it comes to the industry, they're trying to get you to be as cookie cutter as possible. They're trying to get you to fit within the algorithm, to find the answer. They don't want you to be individualist. They don't want you to be trying new things that people might not like. Well, and if you follow that too hard or too close, you're taking away from what makes your music you and what makes your music good because it sounds like you.
Yeah. I mean, and you can't totally even blame them. They just want the safe bet, and the safe bet is what they know. But for me personally as an artist, I'm always going to unapologetically do whatever I want. And I'm always going to go after what sounds the best to me and what sounds the sounds that I genuinely want to make, because there's other people making those sounds. They already exist, and there's no one making the music that I make. I'm the only person that can make the music that I make, and I take that responsibility very seriously.
And I think some might see this not as a compliment, but I truly feel like this is the greatest compliment, is when you do have like producers send you tracks that they want to sell, and you make it, you put some bars down, and they're like, well, we can't use that because it sounds like you. And it's like, yeah, of course it sounds like me, because there's no one else like me, and I'm not going to make some cookie cutter shit.
And that's why
this is me. And when you hear my songs, you're going to know it's me, because this is my sound. And I feel like that's a huge compliment, truly.
And that's why I have to continue.
Yeah.
And that's why I'll never stop, because at the end of the day, no one is making this music. It's just me. I'm the one who makes my music. I'm the one who's making my sound. And despite the fact that I haven't connected with my audience yet, I feel so confident that there are people out there who will benefit from hearing my music. And I know that there are already people who have benefited from hearing my music. It's only a matter of time. And I'm proud of my creative pursuits, and I'm proud of what I've been able to create and accomplish. I never put anything out unless, I mean, nothing is ever finished, so that's partially part of it. But I share things that I love and that I'm proud of, and I continue to be really proud of myself and proud of the work that I've shared throughout the years. And I just can't wait to like continue to share new music and continue to create new music and create new experiences and meet new people and find new collaborators, because that's like literally what it's all about.
Definitely.
Cool,
That's awesome.
You guys.
Cool.
This has been
a lengthy
room.
one, but it's been good.
It's a record.
Yeah,
It's definitely the longest Bisca rooms ever. But if you made it this far, like, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for like showing love and showing up. And 25 videos is a big deal. Just wait, it's gonna be 50, and then it's gonna be 100.
That's gonna be 100.
We are gonna get there. I am gonna keep creating.
We're gonna make a 100-hour video for the 100th video.
No, my computer could not handle that. But yeah, genuinely, we love you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us, get to know us better, allow us to share our thoughts and our experiences with you. It remains to be so special and such a wonderful part of this new chapter of my life and this new experiment and experience that has been happening over these past 5 months since we decided to move down here and into the actual move itself. And yeah, there's just more to come. So happy 25, you guys. Many, many more to come. My name is Bisca Rae.
My name is Cole.
And we will see you again very soon.